Hello everyone and welcome back to another tutorial. Today I wanted to show you how I do my seamless color changes. You would use a seamless color change when you want to try and make your lines be really straight for something like this little bunny here where we made the little colors on her shirt. It's a really simple technique and I use it all the time when I make amigurumi, and I thought I would show you all how I do it today. We're going to be working on a little hairless cat that I've been making on stream. We're actually going to be giving this little cutie a striped sweater, and so I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to show you all how I do these color changes. So we're gonna start with purple. I already had fastened off the end here, so we're just going to go ahead and join with this purple and make our first stripe, and I'll show you when we get to the end how to do the seamless join. I'm going to be using a number of different techniques that I've already shown in other videos, so one of them being using a running stitch marker. Now you can also do color changes if you do slip stitch to join at the end of your rows. I'll show you real quick what that looks like. But a lot of patterns are worked in the round, which means that you're not slip stitching at the end, and so doing so might make your pattern shift or have your increases or decreases in a different spot than where they normally would go. So a slip stitch to join would have you going into the first stitch that you made, yarning over and pulling through both the loops so that you make one complete round. In order to then make your next round, you would chain one to bring your hook and your yarn up to the next, I guess, level or row height. And then you would start working into that same exact stitch. So in this case here, there's now a chain one and then a single crochet. And you can see how that makes this next row a little bit taller. Because of that, when you join your rounds, they end up being the same height. So this is one option, but if your pattern has you working in the round and not doing the slip stitch to join, I wanted to show you a different option to get that same clean look without doing the slip stitch and chain one. So this is our last round of purple, so I'll show you what I do when we reach the end. So now that we've worked our third round, this is as many rounds as I wanted to do of the purple. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my yarn and pull through. There are a couple of different ways that you can finish off your work, because if you just take your hook out, it can become undone by just pulling on it. One of the ways is to make a chain, but the way that I normally end my work is by simply cutting the yarn and pulling through my last stitch. This will not unravel anymore, and it leaves a nice finished end to the row. So once you've pulled your yarn through and threaded it on your tapestry needle, you're going to go from the front to the back, just like how you normally would when you crochet, right? You go front to back with your hook. Do the same thing with your tapestry needle. So you're going to skip the first stitch, and I'll show you why in a minute, but you're going to go into the second stitch with your tapestry needle from front to back, just like that, and pull it through. So once you've gone through with your tapestry needle, you can see that what we've done is we've essentially made one part of a loop. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to that last stitch that we crocheted, the one that we ended on right here. You can see it's before our running stitch marker, so it's a great way to help keep track. So you're going to go down in between the two loops. So you're going to take your tapestry needle and go in between the two loops, and it's going to come out on the inside of your work. So pull that tapestry needle through, and what you've essentially done is made a false loop. So that's why we skipped the first stitch, because what we've done is we've made a fake top for that first stitch. This right here is what we just created. So you can see if I pull it really tight, it's going to make it kind of disappear. So you want to keep it about the same tension as your normal stitches. And now from the front, you can't tell where that join was made. You can't tell from the top either. And that is how I do my invisible joins to make a seamless color change. Of course, I'm going to show it to you again, so don't worry if you're like, oh my gosh, I still don't get it. We're going to now join with some white yarn, and I'm going to make another couple of rows, and then I'll be back and I will show you again how I do it. Whoosh, transition. So we're going to join our next color into that fake stitch that we just made. It works just like any other crochet stitch that you have. So we're just going to join here because that's where our next stitch would naturally fall in the pattern. All right, so we're coming up on the end of this color change. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut our yarn, going to pull it through, and we are going to thread it onto our tapestry needle. Okay, so now that we have our thread on our tapestry needle, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to skip. It is a little harder to see with white yarn, I apologize. I'll just show you one more time with the green yarn too that I'm using. We're going to skip our first stitch here. Okay, we're going to go into our second one from front to back, pull it through, and we're going to give it a little pull just so that it's about the same tension as our stitches. Then we're going to go back down. You can actually see where the yarn is coming out of on that other stitch, and that's where we're going to go back. So again, we're skipping this one. We're going back into the stitch. That was the last one that we crocheted, and we're going down in the middle of the stitch and having our tapestry needle come out on the inside of our amigurumi piece. And then we're going to give this a little pull again, just so that it's about the same tension as our other stitches. And we are going to weave that under a couple of stitches just to secure it for our next round that we're crocheting. Once I've gone back and forth a few times to make sure that it's secure, a lot of times I'll just take this yarn and put it inside the amigurumi because, you know, it's free stuffing at that point. We're going to do the same thing with the green yarn, and that should show up a lot nicer on camera. And then I'll show you one last time how to do the color change since the white yarn was not cooperating. Now, I also was just thinking that this is something important to mention. You can do this kind of join even if it doesn't tell you to do this kind of join in the pattern that you're making. This will not affect any kind of placement for your increases or decreases or color changes, patterns, anything like that. This is absolutely a method that is okay to use. Like I had mentioned before, using a slip stitch to join can sometimes cause the work to straighten out or shift a little bit. So this method won't cause that. Now, if you notice that your piece is not lining up perfectly because it's still being worked in the round and there is that slight difference in height, one of the things that I like to do, I almost think of it as like doing a little bit of a mini blocking on an amigurumi, because a lot of times it'll be a little bit like this. So what I do is I tend to just grab and pull a little bit with my left hand just to try and get the stitches a little bit more even with each other. So we're going to do our last row and then I'll be back to show you the join. So adding another interesting little factor into this last example is that it's actually going to be a decrease stitch that we're going to be using. So you can use this method of joining your yarn for increases, for decreases, for regular rows. It doesn't really matter. So I cut my yarn, I'm going to pull it right through. Let's go ahead and, oh yes, this shows up so much nicer than the white did. So we have our last stitch here that we just finished stitching. We're going to skip our next stitch. So we're skipping this one and we're going to work front to back with our tapestry needle on the second stitch away from the stitch we just finished. And pull this through. And you can see what we're doing right now is we're making that front bar of the stitch that we skipped. We're making a false stitch to work into. Now, because you just worked a decrease, you notice that if you do the same kind of tension, it has a really long strand here. It looks really awkward. So you might have to pull it a little bit tighter than what you had to do when they were just regular single crochet rounds. That's okay. What you're really focusing on is trying to get the tension, your fake tension, to match your real tension. So I'm going to pull this like that. And then I'm going to go back through this last stitch that we just finished. Take my tapestry needle and work through those two and again come out on the inside. That way the stitch doesn't get all tangled up. And we're going to pull it so that the tension matches. And you can see here how really seamless that looks. That's a really good, here, I'll remove this running stitch marker. Look at that. We're going to weave our tail through a few stitches here just to secure it down. And there you go. You now have 3 little stripes that are pretty seamless. It's not perfect, but again, this method is what I use when I make my amigurumi. I tend to hide my seam start and ends in the back. And again, you can kind of give a little bit of a pull to help flatten out those rounds so that they're even less noticeable. So yeah, that's how I do my seamless joins. I hope that this has helped you. I hope that it is a method that you try. Drop a comment down below if you have any questions and I will definitely be sure to answer them. I hope that you all enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know if there is anything that you would like for me to show next time. And thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, take care everyone. Bye. Oh my God, it's like a little collar.